G'day legends, I'm here at King's Cross in London with Shahbaz Choudry. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Very, very well. Now guys, a lot of you might not know this man sitting here with me, but you will probably know what he is the founder of and what his brand is about. It's Pace Journal, an awesome Instagram account, but more than that, it's a community for fast bowlers all around the world. And Shahbaz is very, very passionate, the best in the business at sharing excellent information for young fast bowlers and making it accessible to anyone, which we're going to get onto in a little while as we progress. But like I do with all of my guests, let's go back to the start. How did you first start playing cricket? What are your earliest memories of playing cricket?
My earliest memory of playing cricket is watching my uncle. He was a left-arm fast bowler from Pakistan. He played professionally over there. And I remember he played 2 under-19 World Cups. One of them was in England. Well, not one, World Cups were in England. He toured England. And I remember he gave away Shah and Rob Key an absolute nightmare of a time, because I used to go to the grounds and watch him. And at that time, I think that was my first exposure to watching fast bowling.
And how old were you then, do you reckon?
Do you know what, I couldn't even tell you. I was very young. I think I was like probably 10, 11 or 12. I know he was making the rounds, like he was always in the headlines, and for my local club, Reading Cricket Club, he was the first overseas player that they had, and he just tormented sides there as well. And after that, I watched Shahbaz. This was the 2013 series, I believe, against India. I remember watching him bowl, and I think he bowled, I think it was Sehwag or Lakshman now. And I remember that's the first time I ever saw like speed like that, and I just fell in love with fast bowling.
Right.
So literally picked up a ball and just tried to bowl fast ever since then.
And so were you playing cricket before then? Were you sort of a batter or a spinner? Because I know a lot of our guests have had funny journeys. They've started as a spinner, ended up a fast bowler, or started a fast bowler, ended up a batter. Were you playing at all before that?
No, actually, just playing for fun. Nothing too serious. One of our family friends, Shaukat, his name was. His son was actually playing county cricket for Berkshire at the time. And I remember I went to school with his son, and he came to my house once and said, "Look, do you want to come down to the cricket club?" I went down with him, and I remember him dropping me off and knocking on the door and saying to my dad, "Uncle, can I take him more often? He's actually very good." And my dad kind of laughed. He was like, "No, leave him, like it's fine." And he goes, "No, Uncle, he's very fast. Like he's quicker than everyone there. I think I should take him." So I went with them, and I think my earliest memory playing Colts cricket at the time, I think it was under 12 or something like that. I remember taking like 5 wickets in 2 overs, and the manager of the club, I think it was Hurst or Finchampton. I know the guy's name is Ronnie. I remember that because he was my county manager at the same time. He came out and said, I'm not going to play anymore. It's like our team's just like, we're too scared. I think I've injured one of the guys and just bowled out 5 of them, and they were like, there's no point us playing, and he just pulled the team off. So I think from then I always thought I was a big man, and watching Shoaib as well, you know. With the hair flying everywhere, exactly. And I remember sticking loads of oil on my hair as well. Like it was crazy because it was very hard to grip the ball. But I remember having oil on my hair and just trying to be like Shahbaz.
Amazing. So you were early teens maybe, or 10, 11, and
yeah, I was around 13.
So it must have been that physically you were just gifted to bowl fast, and you obviously watched a lot of cricket, but you hadn't had the hours and hours of practice up until that point. You were just.
Actually, when I look back at my old videos, I don't have them at the moment, but I remember looking back on them. And I looked at my action for the first time, and I was like, this is disgusting. I was in so much shock, because all this time I was of the belief that I looked like Shoaib and my action was like Shoaib's. And I remember when I first watched it back on camera, I was like, this looks nothing like Shoaib. And I think that's where the perfection trap actually started. That's where the seed was planted. But I just think I had the heart for it at the time. I won't say I had the skill, I won't say I had the technique or anything like that. I just think at that stage it was all heart. Yeah. Like I wanted to bowl fast.
Excellent, and that's, which we'll probably get to, that's probably one of the keys to being a good fast bowler. Now I must say, for those listening and people watching, we are here at, near King's Cross. It is quite busy. There's a few things going on, so there might be a little bit of background noise, but hopefully this technology is working okay. So at what point, obviously you saw your uncle, you saw Shoaib. At what point did you think, I love fast bowling and this is something I want to pursue as a career? And in that sort of teenage years, did you have anyone, you obviously idolised Shoaib, did you have any mentors that sort of guided you throughout that period?
At that stage when I was younger, I think I fell in love with fast bowling just by sort of getting the recognition of being the fast bowler. Because I know Tino Best said this in one of my podcasts, that a fast bowler sets the tone of the game. You know, we open up the first ball of the game. It's almost like we break bread. You know, we're the first people. It starts from us. So I just loved the feeling of standing there, you know,
with the power.
With the power, exactly.
Yeah.
Batsmen sort of, you know, taking their guard. Umpires got their hand out like this. I'm the one standing there. Everyone's looking at me. All the parents that are watching at that time, they're looking at me. Okay, he's going to start this off. So I just loved that. I loved the feeling of having that power, that everything happened on my terms. And I actually abused it sometimes because I used to take my time. I used to stand there and, you know, make everyone wait and things like that because it would just, I like that. That's where I fell in love with it, basically. I like the power of it. And just running in bowling, blasting a batsman out, I love that as well. So that's where the love started. Didn't really have any mentors that much growing up. I mean, even my uncle, he was so busy, obviously, with his own professional career that I didn't get much time to speak to him. I don't think he spoke very good English at the time as well, so I probably couldn't communicate with him. But when I remember when I first watched my action and thought this is horrible, and I basically tried to copy Brett Lee. And I just scoured the internet for information for fast bowling, and Ian Pont is a name that kept flagging up. And I remember reading all of his articles, and I remember asking my dad, can you buy me this course? And it was like £70 at the time. And he bought it for me, didn't get much use out of it. And I remember telling Ian this later as well, by the way.
Was it an online course?
It was an online course. I remember telling Ian afterwards in South Africa, I said, Ian, I didn't like that. And he started laughing because I'll give you your money back. But I then read the book, Fast Bowler's Bible. And at that stage, my dad said, look, you know, you can keep reading this guy's books, keep consuming his content, so why don't we go and meet him? This is further on down the line, by the way, but he would probably be my first proper mentor that came into my life.
Yeah, and you've mentioned your dad there, and we spoke a bit about your journey and how supportive your parents have been. They've always been very supportive of your cricket dream.
Very supportive. All of my family. I still remember my first county game. It was at Cambridge University, and I remember my sister, who was studying to be a doctor at the time. She had done research all night about, you know, what sort of drinks an athlete should have. I still remember this. She created these isotonic drinks for me.
Wow.
And I remember being on the boundary. That was a crazy experience as well, because I was so used to playing like 15 over cricket to playing 40 over cricket, and I hated it. I was like, this thing is disgusting. Like, this is just long. But I remember on the boundary, I had my mum, my sister, and she had these isotonic drinks for me. So always very lucky. Always had a very supportive family. Literally gave me everything I ever needed.
Excellent, and that's what hopefully most people watching have, but obviously there's ways around that if you don't. Now, moving through your teenage years and into your early sort of adulthood, you got the opportunity, you were involved with Middlesex through that period, and then you were telling me a little bit earlier about how things came about at Northamptonshire as well, and you had almost had an opportunity to play professional cricket with Northamptonshire. How did that whole period look?
I used to have a very big delivery stride, and I think that's because I was copying Brett Lee at the time as well. And I remember doing this drill called the 3-knee drill that Ian was an advocate of. So you're coming into the crease with a high knee. When you're in the crease, when you're on your back foot, you lift your left knee up to engage the left hip, and then as you drive out with your right knee. And I think that, I'm not sure if it is that, but I remember having a very big delivery stride. And I used to always get an anterior impingement or something like that on my left Achilles. And I went everywhere. I saw every sort of physio. No one could fix it. And I remember seeing a orthotic specialist, and he said, "Look, you've got flat feet, so you're going to need to create a custom insole to try and counteract the forces when you land." That didn't help either. And then Ian at that point said, "Go and have a meeting with Barry Goodran, who was the Northants physio at the time. I think he still is." And I went to the county ground, and I saw Barry. He taught me how I have to actually strap my ankle, because he goes, you're going to have to basically pull this tibialis bone back, so that when it does land, you almost have to like reverse counter the movement of that bone pushing forward, which is causing this crazy pain in your Achilles. Sorry if this still sounds so technical, but
good. It's good to know.
As I walked out of the physio room, I bumped into Dave Cagle, who was the first team head coach for Northants at the time. And I remember him, I think he was probably like, who's this guy? Like, this is the first team sort of physio room, what's he doing here? And I introduced myself to him, my name's Shahbaz, and he goes, "Oh, you're Ian's boy, he always talks about you." And he said, I want to see you bowl. He asked me a few questions. I didn't tell you this bit, by the way, when we were walking, but he asked me some questions. I remember giving him the most ludicrous replies. Like, I think he said something like, what do you think about variations of slower balls? And I said, yeah, I got the faster ball. And he started laughing, and I think he said something about, what do you think about team spirit and playing as a team? And I said, I think it's nonsense. I think if everyone thought that they could handle their own job, you've got 11 guys who don't look to each other, they'll take the responsibility upon themselves. I remember walking out of there and getting a phone call from Ian. I was in the car with my dad going back home to Reading, and Ian goes, "What the hell did you say to David Capel?" And I was, in my head, I'm trying to turn the volume down in case my dad hears that, Ian's having a go at me. And I said, nothing. And he goes, "Whatever you said, he loves you." And he was like, he wants you to come and have a bowl at Chelmsford at the break of the first class game. So then I went back and had a bowl into the mitt. David Capel was holding it, and I just remember coming out there and Ian telling me he thinks you're very raw. He thinks that someone with that sort of mentality doesn't come around very often. And he made a special note of the fact that Shahbaz didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. He told me what he really cared about. And we need to sign this kid. So I got hooked up with the academy at that time. I was under the tutelage of David Ripley, who's an amazing man. And yeah, at that stage there, I was on the sort of cards to play first team cricket. I believe it would have been 2010 season at that stage.
And how old would you have been then?
I was 18 going on 19.
Right, so you're in a good space. You're sort of where you want to be at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like all great stories, there's a bit of a plot changing and things then turned a bit pear-shaped. Can you tell us a bit more and tell our listeners and viewers a bit more about what happened there and the struggles you went through then?
There was about 6 plot changes that happened before that as well, but we'll save that. I was just so obsessed with wanting to be the best. So my dream was always, I want to be the fastest bowler in the world. And I remember I did absolutely everything in my power to try and make that happen. I really, really felt like I had it in me. And with Ian being such a reputable coach as well, I think he really felt that enthusiasm from me as well. And I could tell that, he would give me that extra attention. He would really give me that time.
You could obviously see that your heart was in it, which you spoke about at the start.
I made a hell of a lot of sacrifices, and anything that was ever asked of me, I did twice as hard. I did. I know there's loads of kids out there who do exactly the same, but I really felt like this is in my reach. And I remember at that stage, I was Ollie Stone, the guy who plays Test cricket now. He was literally he was with me at the time at Northants Academy, and I still remember those days so vividly in my mind, like bowling and Ollie's there, and everyone's like, "What was it? I forgot his name." Ben Duckett.
Yeah.
I remember no one really wanted to face me at that time. Rob Keogh was a good friend of mine at that time as well. I remember just, I had everything at that stage. And I was so obsessed with wanting to become better and better and better. I was looking for ways. And I felt like from a technical perspective, there was not much I could do, naively speaking, not much I could do to get better. So I was like, maybe I need to go and look into other domains to try and bring sort of practices into cricket to become this 100-mile-an-hour monster. And I looked at javelin, I looked at baseball, and I remember going to South Africa with Ian for 11 days for a camp in Potchefstroom, which is an amazing place. And we were learning from the coach of Jan Zalesny. I don't know if you know who that is. I think he's like 6-time world record holder of javelin.
Right.
Through 98.48 meters. Like his mechanics are just unreal. And we were actually training there with Andreas Thorkelson, who was a world champion at that time. And he was almost as strong as an Olympic lifter. He was huge. This guy was massive and strong. And I remember Tertius, who was Jan's coach at the time, he said, "Look at Jan," and he goes, "This guy can't lift feathers." And look at Andreas, and he goes, "This guy, he could be an Olympic powerlifter. He's that strong. This guy throws 8 meters further than him." So what Tertius was trying to tell me is that's how important technique is. And I think that word there, even Ian was with me. I think that really opened our eyes. We were like, damn, there's obviously a lot more going on here, technically and biomechanically, than we think. And I just soaked everything from Tertius at the time. I learned everything about javelin, and I just wanted to apply it. But then you all know this yourself, being a professional cricketer in the past, that the playing season is so busy, you can't work on those things and play at the same time. So at that stage, I really thought to myself, I can't play, because I need to take a break here. And I remember my own personal circumstances at the time, as I mentioned to you before. My brother was an engineer, studied being an engineer at university. My sister studied to be a doctor. So my family kind of had that little bit of pressure on me, like, okay, son, what are you doing? You don't have education on your side, so what are you doing? So I kind of felt the pressure that, okay, I need to make this work. And I thought, if I go and learn these unbelievable skills from these guys, it's going to turn me into something the world has never seen before. And that kind of led to my demise, I would say. I mean, looking back on it, I would comfortably say that was probably one of the biggest errors I made, was staying away from playing the game that season and potentially being introduced into first team county cricket to work on some of these really fine, crazy technical aspects.
So you made a conscious decision, I'm going to not play any cricket to then become this incredible player in 12 months' time.
Exactly that. And I remember having a conversation with David Ripley at the time, and I explained to him my personal circumstances at home, quite tough. And I remember him actually saying to me, because I was signed by then, he was saying to me, look, they obviously are paying me money, and he was like, we can give you compassionate leave to try and buy you some time, Shahbaz, sort whatever you've got on at home going on, you need to play. And I think I handled that very bad, because I was trying to work on these things. I went back out to South Africa actually for 3 months, this time on my own, completely off my own back, and everything fell apart. And I went out there with a friend of mine, Nabil, who was just trained to be a boxer at that time. And I remember that was probably one of the darkest moments of my cricketing life, because I was 18 years old at the time, and everything was crumbling. I had no one there. Ian wasn't there. It was just me. And I think it really hit me when my mum rang me one night, and I heard her voice and I started crying. I had to pretend the phone, like the line was fuzzy or something. I cut the phone off. But that conscious decision that I did make, I think was catastrophic for me at that time.
So I know a bit more, but to fill others in, what then happened after that? 3 months in South Africa, things got even worse from there on, didn't they?
Yeah, because I think what happened is I lost my sort of natural flair and natural style, and I started to really break things down by the frame, because just like that camera there, I had exactly the same thing with me everywhere. I would record and I'd go put it back into the laptop and I'd look at it frame by frame, and I was trying to recreate my action frame by frame.
And be perfect. And
when I was actually trying to bowl, I was trying to do exactly the same thing. But they say hindsight is a crazy thing, because looking back on it, and I think to myself, Shahbaz, you idiot. Like, fast bowling happens like that. We're talking 0.1 seconds, you're in and out, done. How on earth can you actually consciously control those movements? You can't do it.
And there's got to be some natural movement to your body.
Even science would tell you that. Like, obviously fast bowlers rely heavily on an eccentric contraction, stretch reflex, and that happens without conscious thought. It's the body's own self-defense mechanism from stopping your shoulder from getting dislocated, so it speeds up the movement. You can't think about that. It just happens. The best way of actually describing that is, if you touch something which is really hot and your hand just move away, or you step on something sharp and your hand it moves away. Those decisions are not controlled by your conscious brain.
No.
It's a central nervous system
it's a
activity.
fight or flight.
It's the fight or flight thing, exactly that. So by me trying to control those movements, I was actually breaking those movements.
And you were moving from your subconscious into your conscious.
Into my conscious, and that is where everything kind of fell apart, and I found it extremely hard to try and get back to just letting things click. And that then started the 3-odd year odyssey of trying to get everything back. And I honestly, looking back, and I don't know how I stayed strong even in my own mind, even though I was in the dark place. I don't know how I kept the belief that I would eventually find it again.
And so did you have your family were supporting you at that time? Did you have a lot of people supporting you in that dark time, or were you sort of left to your own devices and you had to pull yourself out eventually?
To be honest, when you're in a bad place mentally, you kind of block out a lot of help as well. And I think I kind of did that. The gentleman I was telling you off air, Naeem, a good friend of mine, I remember at the time he would always tell me, just play, things will get better. And I actually remember thinking to myself, you know what, 2 years, nothing's working for me right now, maybe I should just play. And I thought, I've got nothing to lose, And
you were still chasing perfectionism off the field at this stage?
No, yeah, I was.
You were still reinventing things and trying to go frame by frame and be perfect,
Yeah.
while not playing a game.
Exactly. I actually, at that stage, thought to myself, that's the only way I'm going to make it right, is if I go back frame by frame and fix things. Again, technique is a beautiful thing, but I will always stand by this, because I feel like I'm a living example of it. Technique isn't everything.
Not at all.
And my technique actually looked perfect. That's the crazy thing was, it looked perfect. Frame by frame, it was perfect, but the result was crap. And that's what I couldn't get my head around. And that's where I was banging my head against a brick wall thinking, what's going on here? And I still then thought to myself, okay, technically, maybe I need to do something. And I remember even going to the extremes of thinking that maybe I'm just not fit enough. And I reached out to, at the time, do you know David Hayes?
Yes,
former heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
I remember his coach, Ruben Tavares, his name is. I remember reaching out to Ruben and Peter Marcus Giano and Ruben Tavares. These guys have trained Amir Khan, David Hay, John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, and they've got a crazy roster. I met them in Windsor, I showed them my videos, I showed them my passion, and they took me on. And they were doing all of my fitness for me and everything, and I was so strong, I was so fit, but I was still in bits.
Mentally?
No, bowling wise. Like,
and so how were you judging whether you were going well or not if you weren't playing? Were you judging it on how it was feeling, or how they were coming out, or what the speed gun says, or what were you?
How it was feeling, how it was coming out, and it's the best way of me explaining it is I know what it feels like to go fast, right? And I know what I was doing it's like a million years away from what I was doing. So for me, that was just a very tough thing to accept. So I kept saying to myself, I can't play like these guys. Like I know for a fact that I'm bowling considerably slower than what I can do.
And your pride probably wouldn't, and your ego wouldn't let you go and perform at that level.
That's exactly the thing. And I remember Naeem at the time just saying, just play. And I took his advice, and he was playing for Dinton at the time in the Home Counties Premier League, and I played a game for them in the first team. And I remember going there and I had all this pressure on me. Everyone was, this is that Shahbaz kid, this is that kid. And that pressure was so real. And I remember the first over, it was like, honestly, I think I bowled like 14 no balls, wides everywhere. The thing was crazy. So funny actually that I think the adrenaline was helping me produce some sort of speed. Because I remember the umpire turning around and saying to me, mate, he bowled about 10 or 12 no balls, but I'll tell you one thing, I've never seen a guy make a batsman look so average on a free hit like you have, because I was getting them out on free hits.
Yeah, wow.
But it just felt terrible.
But maybe looking back, the free hit was where you could just let things loose a bit and you could relax and just run in and bowl fast, whereas when you had to bowl a normal ball, you were a bit tense, you were too tense.
But again, your mind, well, especially me, went into over-analytical mode, and when I was bowling those no balls, I'm thinking, shit, where do I sense it out, but where do I jump from? Where do I start my run up from? What's going to happen here? So again, it was very fight or flight mode at that stage. And I remember playing that one game, it was such a horrible experience. I was like, I can't do that. And that's when I actually accepted that this is done, and I was like, I've lost it. And yeah, that was the moment.
Now, two things, we're going to just progress from that in a minute, but moving forward to where you are now, having founded Pace Journal, having interviewed some of the best fast bowlers in the world, knowing what you know now, what would you say, or what would you do if you were mentoring yourself 10 years ago?
Oh, that's a beautiful question, because it's something I always put out on Pace Journal, and I always ask all of my guests this question without any prejudice or bias. Like, I didn't tell them what I think, I always ask them the question. Trust yourself and don't chase perfection, because it's a myth. And I still get influx.
So those simple two sentences could have changed your career and your life.
100%. And again, I'm not here to try and put a blame on anyone no one told me that. At that stage, I think I was very ignorant as well, as a young man. So that's the other advice I'd say: don't be ignorant. To any of the young kids out there, even if you've got the world at your feet, or you think you've got the world at your feet, don't be ignorant, because the game is a lot more than what you think it is. So even if, no matter how well things are going for you, be open-minded, listen to people. Doesn't mean you have to take on what everyone says, but have an open mind and take information in, because you never know, what you might be listening to or reading or watching could be gold. So and I still do it to this day. I keep telling these guys, play the game. And I know there's a kid called Aman from India, and I love this kid because he's very much like me. And I see him post these things frame by frame, and he's watching, his positions, and he's so happy. And I remember saying to him, Aman, I'm telling you from my heart
and my experience,
let go of that, get in the middle, play the game. I guarantee you, that same position you're in, you ain't going to be in that position in the game. And until you play more of those games, that's where you've got to do your learning. And that's the number one piece of advice I'd give.
Yeah.
There's a place and a time for technique, but there's a big difference between training and performing. Performance is something, it's all mental for me. I feel like what you do technically is great if you have major flaws or deficiencies, or you've got like an injury or something that you really have to combat. But the learning that you get in the middle, that is irreplaceable.
Absolutely. Something that I've started to use in my coaching that Chris Rogers passed on to me from a seminar he went to was, when you are training, there's two zones. There's the performance zone, where you are just making decisions and you're training or playing, training like it's a game. And there's the learning zone, where you can break things down and you start thinking about, but what a lot of people, especially from a batting point of view, is they mix the two. They try and make good decisions to balls at 135 k's an hour while thinking about their shoulder and their head and their hands, which really that should be done when you're facing a bowling machine in a sort of isolated situation. And when you're facing the bowls, it's all about trusting yourself. So it's trying not it's trying not to cross those learning and performance zones over a bit. Going back to that point then, where we sort of paused, you bowled that over, you played that game, and you thought, this is it, I'm not going to make it. What came next? Because I know you sort of spiraled your life off the field, sort of didn't go so well from there on either.
Yeah, at that stage, my brother had graduated, he had founded a company, him and his I'd say he's going to kill me for it, but his only friend, Fadil, they started a company, and I think I just spent a lot of time with them. And I remember going to their office and actually doing drills in the middle of the corridor of their office. I remember I used to do this all the time. And I just spent a lot of time with them and sort of understood entrepreneurship. So just shadowing my brother and learning from him and learning about business. And I think from there I thought to myself, okay, I want to be a businessman, you know? Like, those same, and I put a post about the other day about this where I said, guys, no matter how, if you do not make it in this game, the skills and the habits that you acquire from the game can be transferred into other parts of your life.
I saw that, brilliant.
So I felt like, I have the ability to work hard. I have the ability to take rejection and still persist and go forward. So I want to start a business. And I sort of dipped my toes in entrepreneurship just by learning from them, from my brother.
Cricket was completely on the back burner at the stage?
Completely on the back burner. And I still remember sitting, I went to a pitch actually, an investment pitch with Fadil and my brother. And we were sat in a lobby of the train station, and he said to me, you need to do something in cricket. Become a coach, do something in cricket. And I was like, no. He was like, why? And I go, just don't talk to me about cricket.
Too painful.
Too painful. And I remember him saying to me, word for word, he said, you gave too much to this game. Get something out. And I said, no, I don't want to talk about cricket, leave it, whatever. Made excuses, ran away from it. But yeah, for me, cricket was the thing of the past. And it was very tough because what I started doing is I was always very fond of marketing. And I started taking on like individual clients. And one of my clients was actually a boxer. He's a professional boxer from Reading, Tamuka. And he was doing very well. He had 16 fights. He was undefeated, on the brink of fighting for a British title. And we were doing a PR tour for him. And we went to Reading Chronicle. And one of the gents over there were interviewing him. And he turned around, he asked me, he was like, oh, who are you playing for this year? And I was like, looking around, I was like, what? I'm like, how'd you know that? And he was like, oh man, I've been covering Reading News for ages, I know who you are. And Tamuka was looking at me as well at that stage. He was like, what's this guy talking about? Because I didn't tell anyone. I kept that all very much to myself because I was trying to run away from the whole, I used to play cricket.
True.
Yeah, I was trying to run away from it so much. And I remember when he said it, and again, I just spiraled on, like that hurt me so much. I was like, damn, like this guy had to bring it up, didn't he? And I felt like everywhere I went, because I was so passionate, because I was so committed, people, they either saw me running on the road, bowling in a park, or in the gym. They never saw me anywhere else. And I remember saying this to another guy that I was talking to the other day, and I said, probably the most painful thing for me to accept is that I lost everything because I was over-ambitious. If I was, I don't know, chasing girls or partying or getting into bad habits, maybe I'd accept that. You know what, man, I made mistakes and I lost everything. But the fact that I was just so passionate,
you were trying too hard.
I was trying too hard, and for that to be the reason why, it was a bitter pill to swallow. So I remember just abusing myself, just eating a lot, and at the time I don't think I was depressed or anything like that, but I remember meeting Ruben after a long, long time in a hotel, and he saw me and he looked at my state and he said, the way you are now is a reflection of your mental state. And I remember walking away from that. Again, that haunted me. In my head, I was thinking, man, what do you mean by that? And I guess, you know, the whole thing about just hating cricket so much, I didn't want to be associated with being an athlete anymore. So yeah, I abused myself. I put on a ton of weight, I think 31 odd kilos of excess, and yeah.
Right. So that's almost probably at the lowest point. Then.
Yeah.
And then, how did you come back? You mentioned to me before we caught up about mapping it all out. So what was the turning point? And then how did you lose all the weight, find your love of cricket again, and get back to sort of, I'm sure we can talk for days about it, but get back to where we are now?
I don't think you even know this, Tom, but my cousin, his name is Bilal Asif. He plays Test cricket for Pakistan. Okay. He just recently took 5 on debut against Australia last year. He took 5 with New Zealand. In our family, we obviously cover a cricket family, as you can tell. It was always my uncle, and he was also in the Test team just as a reserve for Wazir Makram, I think in 2002 or 2003 at the time. It was always my uncle, and then it was me and Bilal. And Bilal's probably been through more than me. No one ever expected him to do anything in cricket. I remember, this is when I was like obese, I remember my whole family, my dad coming down and saying to me, oh, Bilal just hit the fastest 100 in domestic history of Pakistan. I was like, what? And I went to YouTube and the whole world's talking about it. Like, it's the next Shahid Afridi, the next Chris Gale's just arrived. And then next thing you know, he's in the one-day squad. And he took 5 wickets on second ODI against Zimbabwe. And I remember the joy of the family at that time. Everyone was like, wow, and I was so happy for him. And I remember my brother saying to me, come on, like, just try one more time, just come back. Even if it's not to try and get to this sort of level, just fulfill your potential. And I still ran away from it. I was still like, no, I don't want to do it. And everyone around me at the time, and I think the Bilal story really sparked a lot of inspiration into me as well, because nobody, like, even in our family, to this day, and it's really funny because I've got 6 uncles and they're all so crazy. Like, they're all, I call them the PCB. Because you know what it's like when family sits down and have these chats.
Yeah, they've all got their opinions.
They've all got their opinion. And they still, to this day, they're picking out all these flaws in Bilal. And I think Bilal, actually, want to say, he split his hands up. I was like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah,
like, I've gone from the street to play Test cricket. Like, and you're still telling me I'm crap? Come on, guys. So at that stage, I was like, you know what? It's not him. I can't do it. And I remember then my mum actually having a chat with me. And she's never been supportive of cricket like that. My dad has always been like, oh, come on, I want you to play, but my mum never was. And she said to me, she was like, you know, if you want to, give it a go. Because even at that stage with business, my family is very risk averse. So they were like, look, we don't want you to be in business, it's risky, you know, things might not work out, what are you going to do, get a job, you know, the typical safety first approach. Yeah. And I was like, no, I don't know, mum. But when she said it put a seed in my mind. And probably my only friend who stayed consistent with me through all the good times and all the bad times is a guy called Ochin. Even in my entrepreneurship days, I had a lot of self-doubt. He was always the one that said, you've got it, mate. You can do it, yeah. Those exact words, he was the one. And I remember having a chat with him and I said, Och, you know, my mum and dad, it's crazy, mate, they're saying this. And he was saying it to me all prior to that. I remember him just saying to me, what have I told you? And I was like, what do you think? And he was like, let's just do it. He goes, don't think too far ahead. You know, don't think you're going to be the next England superstar. Just do it for yourself. You know, because there's clearly a lot of regret and a lot of pain there. So I was like, okay. And I remember sitting down. I said to my brother at the time, I said to him, I'll let you know in a week. I said, give me 1 week. And in that week, I was just preparing my mind for, okay, how am I going to do this? First challenge, I've got to lose 32 plus kilos. Second challenge, I've got to get my bowling action back. Third challenge, how the hell am I going to try and make a career out of this? I think at the time it was June or July 2017. Bilal was getting married in December 2017. So my dad set that as a benchmark for me. He goes, look, we're going to be going to Pakistan in December for his wedding. And he was also linked up with the Lahore Qalandars in the PSL. And my dad said to me, go with him. You know, you've got a cousin who's, you know, in the Test team, like, I'm sure he can pull some strings, get you somewhere. So I was like, okay, that's going to be my benchmark. So I sat down and wrote the weeks down, and I thought to myself, how am I going to do this? I worked out a way of losing the weight, like how I believed I was going to lose the weight, and then I sort of thought to myself, okay, how am I going to try and get my action back? And after like 2 or 3 days, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I kind of made my mind up. I spoke to my clients at the time from my marketing business, and I kind of let them know, like, look, I'm going to be doing this. It's probably going to take a bit of my time. They were all very supportive, and they all said to me at the time, look, that's fine. Like, you know, if you can't give us as much time as you used to, that's fine. I sort of budgeted aside how much money this is going to cost me, you know, because this is another thing people don't realise when it comes to training. It's not cheap, man. Like,
and especially when you're investing in yourself, you're getting trainers or coaches or something like that, it does cost.
You know, gym fees, equipment fees, food. I mean, food's not cheap. You know, trying to eat healthy is not the most cheapest option. Yeah. And then I factored into that you know, if I get injured, physiotherapy, stuff like that. Again, I'm so grateful to my parents and my brother, because, you know, I've never been in the need where I need money like that. Yeah. Like, I remember my dad saying to me at that stage, you know, bless him, he's an old man, not too old, Dad. I remember him saying to me, look, I will work. Whatever you need, it's there. I'll support you. And I remember my brother, I mean, I think he said to me, look, you don't even have to say anything. You need something, it's there. So yeah, I mapped it out. At that stage, I was 18.5 stone. The first thing I knew is I can't bowl like that, because common sense will tell you that much weight going through your knees, your hips, your ankles, I'll probably get injured within a week. So at that stage, I said to myself, I need to get under 95 kilos. So I think, if my math is correct here, I think I was 112 when I began. And I said to myself, when I get under 95, I will start to actually jog in and bowl. But before that, I'll just do a lot of drills. All just drills, visualizing, getting things together. That was the first step. Do you want me to go on?
Yeah, keep going. Yeah. I'll take this moment to thank all the great mums and dads out there for all their support.
Mate, thank them all. Like, even if it's not mums and dads, friends, guys like yourself, even that, like, even what the work we do, you know, people always ask me, just digressing a little bit, people always ask me, how do you do it? I know Jock, Brett Lee's coach, he messaged me the other day, he goes, do you sleep? And they always ask me, how have you got it in you to keep giving? And I say, very easy. Because I had it, because people did it for me. So it's easy for me to pay it forward, because I had that. And I don't want to rob someone of that if they don't have that support.
Brilliant.
So,
so what was the lifestyle changes or the diet changes or the fitness? How did all that look to lose that initial 27 kilos or 17 kilos, whatever it was?
Very unhealthy. And again, I had obviously very, very highly qualified coaches around me at the time. I didn't even try and speak to them, because, to be honest, this time around, Tom, I did it differently, because I said I want to do this completely by myself. I don't want any assistance from anyone. I didn't even tell Ian. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my cousins. I didn't tell my friends. I just kept it very quiet. I needed to tell my clients, because obviously it affected my work. But I thought to myself, I'm going to just take myself away, and this is going to be a one-to-one battle with me and my mind. And the main lifestyle changes were obviously clean eating. So stopping the crazy fizzy drinks, chocolates, sugar, the junk food. And luckily, through Tamuka, I saw how he used to lose a lot of weight to make weight for fighting. He had this sweatsuit that he used to just literally do cardio in. That's the first thing I went and bought, was a sweatsuit. And I was just doing cardio like every single day, twice a day. And I was training very, very hard. It wasn't impact stuff. Like, I learned that from Ruben over time, that, you know, be careful how you manage the impact loads. So if you're going to do one day where you're sort of doing sprinting and you're really hitting the ground hard, the next day you don't want to do that. Like, take the load off, get in the pool, you know, get on a bike, try and take that stress off. So I used everything I learned over those 4 or 5 years with those guys, and applied it to this.
And you just set your own training program?
I set my own training program.
And what was getting you out of bed? Was it getting into the December wedding? Was it making your mum happy? Was it making yourself happy again? Was it the feeling of, I don't want to look in the mirror anymore at this? What was getting you out of bed every morning, do you think?
That's a great question, because even people in the gym, they always said to me, because my dad is known to be quite forceful, but he actually isn't. But they were always like, oh, you know, you're doing this because of your dad. And I was like, I'm not. You know, like, you know, are you doing this for yourself? Are you happy? And I was like, yes. So what was getting me out of bed was when I set myself a challenge, I'm all in. And I remember Mike Tyson actually saying this. He was a huge inspiration of mine as well growing up. He said, I'm either top of the world or bottom of the ocean. Unfortunately, I don't have that balance. And that's so ironic, because the campaign we're launching at the moment is keep balance. Because I feel like that's the one thing I didn't have. And
So you're all or nothing.
I'm all or nothing. So for me, when I had made my mind up that I'm coming back, like
It was everything.
it was everything. So it's almost like I put that in my mind, and I had the date on the wall, and I'd go to sleep. Literally, my bed's here, and the wall in front of me. I'd put the date there, December 10, because that was the day I was going to meet Ian Pontable. I kept it in my diary that on that day I have to meet him. So I don't know how I'm going to lose all this weight in that time, but I will do it.
And when at this point was it middle of the year-ish?
It was mid-July at that time. It was very hot, and I remember the first training session really broke my heart because I was like, I think I trained for like 2-3 minutes and I was out of breath, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I've been known to I'm not a fashionista, if you want to call it that. Like, I don't believe in brands and all this sort of stuff, and I always used to train. I used to buy stuff at Primark and train in that. But I remember that at that stage I needed to do something to give me a little bit more. So I went to JD and I bought Under Armour and Nike. And I remember Ocha at the time saying to me, "Oh, this is not you. Like, why'd you do that?" And I said, "You know what? I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to find ways of just like tapping into my mind in some way."
Yeah.
So for me,
feeling a bit different, maybe.
Feeling a bit different. So for me, I was wearing these like cool, amazing branded clothes, and I thought to myself, I've got to be that athlete. And crazy, when I look back at my Instagram, because I kind of documented that entire journey. When I look back at it, and I actually look at the way I looked like an athlete. Obviously, I was overweight, but I looked like an athlete in terms of the clothes I was wearing. And I think that kind of rubbed off on me. Like, I felt like I had to perform like an athlete. So that was helping me.
And that's what a lot of people say. If you want to get the job, dress like you've got the job and wear a suit to the interview so you feel like you've got that power. And it sounds like you were doing it in the sporting sense.
That's exactly what I was doing. Because, when you just put something on, not saying there's anything wrong with not spending, tons on clothes and stuff like that, but I think it is a bit of a self-reflection as well.
And it's all that investment. You've invested that money, you've invested that time to go and do it. You're not going to let yourself down.
Exactly. So I started off training like that, and I would weigh myself every morning, and I'd weigh myself every evening, and I would literally tracking it day by day. Again, like I said, it was definitely not healthy because on so many occasions I crashed. And I think after like 2 weeks, I'd be completely gone. Like, I'd be yawning every time. And I was eating so healthily. I was having like organic foods, superfood shakes, drinking like a litre of vegetable juice every day. And I remember speaking to Roddy, another old coach of mine, very good friend, and he said to me, "You have CNS fatigue." I don't know if you're aware of that. It's amazing. I'd encourage every athlete to look into CNS fatigue. CNS fatigue, yeah. Central nervous system fatigue.
Right.
He basically, it's also known as adrenal fatigue. And the best way he described it to me is he said, "Shahbaz, this is the secret to peak performance. It's controlling your CNS." And the more I looked into it, I think Charlie Francis did a huge study on it, and he said that think of your body like a battery or a phone. You're at 100%. You can't keep going there. At some stage, that's gonna down, and you have to recharge. And this is why rest is so important for any athlete. And there are certain tests that you can do. I downloaded an app on my phone. It's called the Cns Tap Test, and where you literally for 30 seconds you just tap on your phone like this, and it gives you a number, and it gives you this graph, and you get a trend. And I think tapping. I think there's a lot of neurons or something like that in your finger. Tapping on just doing this movement here is a central nervous system movement. So that's a way for your phone to sort of measure how healthy your CNS is. And I was crashed. I was burnt. I was down here. So I had no energy, even though I was eating so well. I had no energy. And I remember, and that's dangerous by the way, because you pick up injuries. I remember at that time I had a shoulder injury as well. You easily pick up injuries. You easily get ill. Even if you want to be fast, you won't be fast because your muscles, your fibers will not fire. And I remember...
I was just going to cut you off there briefly. I was watching a bit of it. It's obviously day one of the third Ashes test today, and Jofra Archer's speeds were down. I know he's been one of your guests. And he's the talk of the world at the moment. But
really is,
Michael Holding was talking about the workload he had during the Lord's test and the speeds he hit and the adrenaline that he would have used up there. 3-day break. I wonder if that's...
Holding is basically talking about CNS.
Yeah,
that's exactly what he's talking about. Yeah. And I remember Roddy at the time said to me, "You need to take a week or 2 off." And I was like, "Hell no, no way." I was like, I'm looking at my calendar. I was like, "No way, I can't afford to." And I remember him saying to me, "You have to." He was like, and at that time I didn't respect it, so I continued through sheer perseverance.
Running on 20% or
running on, this is probably minus. I was still going, and I was still getting it done. But eventually, I remember, and this is a true story, I remember walking out of the gym. I live 5 minutes from the gym. I remember walking out, taking 2 steps, and I literally dropped on the floor. Before this, I had a warning sign as well, because I came downstairs to reception, and I said to the lady, "Can you give me some sugar?" She was like, "What?" She was like, "Give me some sugar." She was like, "The thing's closed." I was like, "You're either going to have to call an ambulance, because I'm going to crash here, give me some sugar." She gave me this like flapjack, and I had it. Again, I ignored everything. I kept training. And I remember walking out of the gym, and I literally collapsed on the floor, and I rang my brother, I said, "Can you pick me up?" And he went berserk on me, and I was like, "What are you talking about? It's 2 minutes late, just coming." I was like, "No, honestly, Tabs, pick me up, I'm on the floor." He picked me up, I went home, I was ill, I had like shivers and everything, I had to take a week off. But that somehow, some way, I was losing the weight, and I was seeing results from that. I was losing the weight, I was getting fitter, I was getting faster, technique was still not there.
Yeah.
That was a horrible thing as well.
Before we get on to the next part, in progression, how would you now, knowing what you know about CNS, how would you advise, or how do you advise young, desperate for success fast bowlers, or any athletes for that matter, to manage their CNS and have rests in between all the hard training?
Listen to your body. And another thing that Ruben always taught me, when you feel ill, that's not when you're ill, mate. You were ill 3 days before. Because when you feel the symptoms, that's when
Too late.
That's the peak.
Yeah.
But you actually got ill before that. And I remember when I was training with them, these guys are very smart. Pete asked me to check my body temperature and my heart rate every morning, and he used to make me put it in a graph. And before training sessions, he'd ask to show me the graph. And literally, if I dipped a little bit below my average, he'd say to me, "We're not training hard today." Some days he even said, "Go home." And I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because you're ill." And I said, "Mate, I feel fine, I feel great." And he goes, "No, you're ill." He goes, "You'll know about it in 3 days."
Wow.
And he goes, "If you try and train now,
You'll
you'll do yourself damage,
yeah.
and you'll break down."
Wow.
So my advice to them is listen to your body and use common sense. You get it. I'm sure you get the same thing. These guys are bowling every single day. And I was talking to another friend of mine. He's actually a physio, and he's just going out to do some volunteer work in India. And he goes, when I went out there, he goes, the problem is a lot of the batsmen need bowlers. You'll notice as well, right? Batting to a bowler is a lot better than batting to a machine.
Yeah.
So you need as many bowlers as you can. And for the bowlers, they think this is my opportunity to
So much competition.
shine. Yeah.
I don't want to miss out of that.
I don't want to miss out. This is my time to show people. And for them, bowling for 4 hours, they think that shows is that I've got stamina, I'm committed. Or actually, you're harming yourself. So common sense will tell you can't bowl every day. And I still tell these guys, till this day, I still get it. I bowl 7 days a week. I'm like, when do you rest? Oh, I don't rest.
And that's a lot to do with the Indian culture, but it's just, and it's like you say, it's just the level of competition is just relentless, that they don't want to miss an opportunity to succeed or be better. But it's just ludicrous when you think about it. And I suppose I'm a batting specialist, and I mentor a lot of young batters, and it's very different to fast bowling. Fast bowling is so brutal and taxing on your body that it just isn't possible to do it every day. And it's just silly to think that you can.
It is. I mean, there's the saying, work smart, don't work hard.
Yeah.
Like, actually
That's
listen
exactly
to that, guys.
it.
It
Exactly
actually
right.
is that.
Yeah.
So yeah, my advice to myself back then would probably be, be sensible.
Yeah.
And now I look at it very differently.
Yeah.
And I guess I had to go through that in order for Roddy to even put that into my mind, into my mental space. What is CNS?
And now, having been through it, you can educate people on what it actually is, because you've lived it.
Yeah.
Now, back sort of before we get into the sort of final stage of the discussion, I suppose, which is about Pace Journal, how did you get back on the park, and what did that look like, and have you become at peace with the game again, and have you found the love for it again?
Yeah, just going back, actually, I'll tell you something funny, because I think this is really important for everyone to hear as well. Even this time round, 6 years after I sort of walked away from the game and everything, when I came back, I still went frame by frame, believe it or not. I still went for my over-analytical approach. I started training for my comeback in, I think, July 2017. Nothing was working. September, I still remember the day, September the 5th, I was in the nets of Reading Cricket Club. Everything fell apart, because that was my test day, by the way, where I was like, I'm going to bowl off 3 steps. Everything fell apart. I literally slumped and I cried in the middle of the net. And I remember I was so upset, I went to the gym studio, I picked up this like measuring tape, I don't know what it was, and I didn't think about anything. And honestly, it's a true story. I didn't think of anything. I just ran and bowled, and everything felt great. And I was in so much shock.
The same day,
That same day,
an hour or two later,
an
after
hour or
you'd
two
been
later,
pro.
I went to the gym, and I picked up this like some tape. I don't know what it was. And I remember I still got the video, by the way. And I just bowled.
Bowled the tape.
Yeah, I just bowled
Not
the
a
tape.
cricket ball.
No,
Right.
just bowled the tape. I didn't think.
Yeah.
I just did this and I bowled. I did not think about anything.
Yeah.
And I remember it felt so good, Tom. I ran upstairs and there was a lady there. She was the only lady there. And I said, excuse me, can you do me a big favour? Can you just come and video something for me? And she was like, okay. She went downstairs, she videoed me. And I bowled and it felt so great. Like, I could not believe what it was. I remember showing it to my friend Ochin. I remember saying, Ochin, look at this. Does this look okay? And he goes, that looks great. And I was like, you won't understand how great this felt. And I remember going to the next day and doing that exact same thing, and it felt great. And I remember crying so much that over that 48-hour period, because I was like the one time where I did not think everything clicked.
Wow.
And oh mate, I felt like I had the world at my feet then, because I was like, I've got it back. And I still remember I went to Bradfield College and I was bowling over there, and I remember, Julian Wood, he was my batting coach actually. I remember him watching me and he was like, he goes, mate, you still got it. And I felt so great. And I remember him saying, look, if you need me to speak to anyone, let me know, you've always had the pace. He goes, if you need me to chat to anyone, let me know. And I was really grateful to hear that from him after all those years. And I remember that's where the confidence just went through the roof. And probably, again, such a painful period for me that was, because I was like, what the hell were you doing all those years when all it took
Overthinking, over-analysing, and not trusting yourself.
was bowling with some tape into just like a mat, like those yoga mats. They were like hung up in the gym studio wall. I just bowled into that, didn't think about anything, and everything clicked for me.
Wow.
So from there I went from strength to strength, and I actually saw my vision for that start to materialise. I thought, actually, you know what, I can make this happen. Like, I can actually make this happen again.
And so that was September 2017.
That was,
Here in the UK, the season will be coming to an end then. We're now in August 2019. Did you play 2018? Have you played this year? Are you still playing, or where are you at now?
I went to Pakistan December 2017. Everything went very good. That was obviously my benchmark, my test. I remember bowling over there and everyone in the streets. I still got the video. I'll show all this to you afterwards. Even if you want to link it in there, you can. I remember bowling so quick out there. In Pakistan, they don't have speed guns. So how they assess your speed is they go, when you bowl a ball, they go and look at the pitch and they look at how much you damaged the pitch.
Wow.
So I've got this video from side on where I bowled a ball and everyone's like, you can just see everyone, like the pitch is here. Everyone is crowded on the side of the pitch like this, just watching the ball. And as soon as it's like landed and hit, they've gone up and they're like, he's dented the pitch more than anyone ever has here. He's got pace, he's this, he's that. And it was such a crazy moment. And then I came back here and I was like, I'm ready for the season. I don't know if you remember, or I'm not sure if you were here at that time, but it was one of the rainiest pre-seasons. Pre-season got washed out, by the way. We had no pre-season. So straight away my plans were derailed. And I was like, I'm not going to get my pre-season stuff. I decided to play Division 1 cricket, not Premier League, because I felt, again, I was trying to use all the knowledge that I'd gained over the years. Don't jump into the deep end. And I remember, I've forgotten the gentleman's name, but he's a Yorkshire first team coach.
Andrew Gale?
Andrew Gale. Andrew Gale invited me down to come and train with Yorkshire. And I remember my dad was like, go, and I was like, no. I was like, I'm not doing that again. I was like, I'm not jumping into that deep end. I haven't played a game in 6 years. I'm not doing it. And actually, I remember David Ripley. He also said, come down to North End. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I played Div 1 cricket, and the first game was against Henley. And I remember I had a little bit of a crowd as well, because they were like, Shahbaz is back and everything. And honestly, Tom, it all came tumbling down all over again. Because the first over felt so weird, felt so different. Everything that had gone well in training, the match pressure, the match environment, umpires, batsmen, wicketkeeper, 10 fielders.
You start to get up here again.
Scoreboard pressure. After one or two balls, stamina was going. I was like, damn, I'm fit. I'm like, I could do 20, 30 miles here. Like, what's happening? And it got tough. And I remember speaking to Ian at the time, and he said, you just need to play me. And I accepted it. I was like, he's right. Because at this stage, I knew better than to go and be over analytical.
Yes.
I actually knew at this stage
I've done that, didn't work.
I've done that. It's got nothing to do with that. It is games.
Yeah.
And in fairness, I had days where I was firing on, like I was unbelievable, but I had days where I was really bad. So there were a lot of inconsistencies. And I remember my uncle said to me at that stage as well, you just need to play more. Get 2 seasons under your belt.
Yeah.
And luckily enough, we had a guy, Jack Bevan, who was playing club cricket with me at the time over there. And he out of nowhere, like he put on like 5-6 miles an hour, and he was rolling real quick. And I asked him, I got advice from him. I said, well, how did it work for you? And he goes, honestly, I bowled loads of overs in the middle. He goes, played a lot of matches, bowled a lot of overs.
Yeah.
And he goes, I had a season. I did my in the off season. I went to Australia, and it all clicked for me there. So at that stage, I had to make a decision. Okay, do I continue? Do I continue just playing and seeing how it goes, or do I, what do I do? Again, it was very frustrating for me because, as you can imagine, losing all of that weight in record time, reinventing my bowling action, bringing the confidence back, getting back in the middle, facing all those demons again, it was hard enough. But then for it to then go a little bit pear-shaped again was tough.
Yeah.
And at that stage, I was posting quite a bit on social media, so I got a lot of questions from guys online.
Was this is something you told me in another question I've got. Was this just on your private accounts, your personal accounts? Obviously now you've been running Pace Journal, the Instagram account, since August last year, just over a year pretty much. Back then, was it just on your own
All
stuff?
personal,
Yeah.
all personal. And I literally got hundreds of messages from people telling me, mate, we love your action, can you tell us more about it? And I was telling them, don't fall into this perfection trap. That's all I was doing. I was spending all my time just telling these guys the same thing. And I had questions myself. And I remember at the time I actually messaged Tino Best, and I was asking him questions, and I was asking George Scrimshaw, who's a lovely guy, plays for Worcestershire, asking him questions, and he was answering these questions for me. And I thought to myself, if it's like all these guys are asking me questions, I'm asking these guys questions. So I was like, I'm the middleman.
Yeah.
So, as I told you before, Pace Journal was actually my journal of my comeback. But I could tell things were not going to work that way. So I thought, why don't I just pivot and just interview professionals and put it on Pace Journal
Share their stories.
and make this public so all of these guys can get that information. So that's where it started. And I remember just out of nowhere just asking Tino, I said, can I interview you? And I didn't have anything at this stage. I remember I didn't have a website, I didn't have anything, and I'm sure you've been there yourself. When he turned around and said, no problem, I think he was a commentator for the T20 Canada League at the time, and he said to me, no problem, I'll be free like next week. And I was like, exactly, I was like, wow, like, firstly, I couldn't believe he answered. So I was in awe of the fact that he actually replied to me.
Can I just say, why out of all the fast bowlers in the world was Tino Best your first one you went to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Funnily enough, he just came up in the field. Like,
Right.
I was just looking at stuff, and he was just there, and I thought, you know what, man, I loved watching him.
Fast, yeah.
I loved watching him when I was young.
Yeah.
So I just literally hit him a message. Honestly, I was in bed, like just casually just doing this. I didn't set out a plan like, okay, I'm going to message this guy.
Yeah.
It was just a really, I never expected him to actually say yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sending this message before bed. I was like, this guy's not going to reply.
And let's just take this moment for all the listeners or viewers to just have a crack, because you never know what can come of it. Look at what you're doing now.
Yeah.
How many lives you're changing.
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't have if you'd not taken that first initial step.
And that's why Tino will always have a very special place in my heart. And it's so crazy, right? Because I think he's got like 10 or 12,000 followers. And I remember even the moment I surpassed him, even though it doesn't mean anything, but I remember thinking to myself, like, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Tino's just started a fitness page. And I remember him saying to me, can you promote my page? And I was just like, one of the moments I was like, can I, like, really, Tino? Like, I was like, no problem, mate.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even know this, but we've got like these internal documents that I make for Pace Journal. And the first page is a picture of Tino's face.
Yeah.
He doesn't know this.
Yeah.
And I always write there to Tino for being number one.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my team and everyone, I said, till the day I'm gone, if I'm gone and Pace Journal is still here, this never changes.
Yeah,
I go,
right.
you never change this.
Yeah.
This will stay here forever. We will always tribute him, always. And I remember sending it to him as a message, and he was like, I said to him, Tino, whatever happens, your legacy will always live on through Pace Journal.
Really?
Purely because
He
you
helped you
gave
get
us the hope.
started.
Yeah. You put me on, because off of Tino, I got everywhere.
Yeah.
Because when I remember messaging Aaron Summers, the Australian at that time, and he said, we've interviewed Tino. And then
All of a sudden you're credible and you can, when can I
same
chat?
thing with Lockie Ferguson. I said, hi Lockie, I've interviewed Tino, could I have a chat with you? That's fine. So for me, Tino was the first step.
Brilliant. And so before we sort of move into where you're at now, 12 months ago you interviewed Tino and you start sharing content on Instagram. How did that first few months look, and how have you now grown it into what is the biggest and best fast bowling sort of community in the world?
The first few months were definitely a lot of learning. So, and again, I think more from a marketing perspective, like Tino's Caribbean accent, not a lot of people could get it. So firstly I thought, okay, I need to break this down, transcribe it. And as soon as I got the information, like as soon as I transcribed it, people just had so many questions. And then I sort of took a step back and I thought to myself, Shahbaz, this is not your audience, these are young Shahbazes. Like, these guys are you. So what would you want? So I always ask the question, like, even in all of my interviews, I never ask questions, like, people always say, how do you come up with these questions? I was like, very easy, because it's stuff I actually want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, even when I spoke to Ishant, right, you'll probably remember this, he was bowling 150 against Ricky Ponting in Australia, and then all of a sudden he was struggling to get over 135. I wanted to know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So when I spoke to him, I said, Ishant, tell me, what happened?
Yeah.
So a lot of the content that we create, it is purely from a very authentic place, because I want to know the answers. And I feel like my community represents me. We are one, which is why I always use that hashtag Pace Family, because it's like, you guys are not different to me, we're the same. So they just wanted more and more and more and more and more and more. So then I started breaking down content and information and giving them more information about it, and they just loved it. And again, a lot of engagement. I interacted with everybody. I tried to give everyone all of my time, and I think they really appreciated that. And from there, we just grew from strength to strength. And then a lot of, we had a lot of professional fast bowlers start following us as well, which was really nice. I remember one day I saw Timar Mills, Junior Dala, like these guys, and I was like, wow, like, I love these guys, I remember saying to my sister, because I always watch Timar's videos, right? I love his action. And I messaged him and said, can we interview you? And he was like, yeah, no worries. I said, look, I make these really cool trailers, can you send me some videos of you, so I'll do it. And he sent me tons of videos of him bowling, honestly. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching, I'm not even making a trailer, I'm just watching his videos, just enjoying it like crazy. And he was sending me so much, he actually sent me some of his dog by accident. He was like, sorry mate, he was like, ignore the dog stuff. And I was like, no worries. But yeah, that's pretty much how it fostered. But for me, that was definitely, as that community started growing, I kind of accepted that this is where my future lied. Like, everything I learned, everything I experienced in cricket, it was for this. It's to give back. And to almost, my ambition through Pace Journal is to protect the future from making those same naive mistakes that I made. Because for me, they were catastrophic. And if I can even help one of them stop doing that, my job is done. Well, mate,
let me take this opportunity to congratulate you
for, so much,
for what you've done. And no doubt, I'm sure there's a load of Pace Journal Pace family members listening or watching, and I'm sure you've influenced hundreds, if not thousands, not just one. So I certainly have enjoyed following your content for the last 12 months or so. I've learned a lot. Pace bowling certainly not my area of expertise, and I really encourage anyone who's listening to make sure you do follow. You can tell from all of your content how much you do care and how much it does mean to you. You're not there for, I've seen, since I started cricket mentoring 3 years ago, I've seen accounts come and go. I've seen people try and recreate what I'm doing, and I can honestly say you're probably the only person or the only account I've seen put as much time and effort into your content and your community as I have. So it's great to connect with you today, but it's been great to sort of track you as well. So now, just coming towards the end, you're about to launch. You've just launched the Keep Balanced campaign. Tell us more about what that's about.
So as I mentioned, as you'll know exactly where I'm coming from here. We receive hundreds and hundreds of messages every single day, and one of the main things that I get is from youngsters who tell me that they're really suffering with their mental health. So they're like, look, I don't have any support, I'm feeling really depressed, I'm not getting the results that I want. And as I mentioned to you before, I would actually reach back out to all of them and respond to everyone. But when you're dealing with tens, it's fine. But when it gets to hundreds and thousands, it becomes impossible, because we're not a multi-million-dollar corp, that we don't have a team of guys that are replying.
And we only have 24 hours a day.
And we don't only have 24 hours a day, and you have to create all the content, so it becomes very hard. So I felt to myself, I really want to help, but I don't know how. So it was our 1 year sort of birthday on August the 12th, and prior to that, I was thinking to myself, okay, what can I actually do to try and help these guys? I introduced like a motivational post thing a while back, but I figured that's, people are going to only read one sentence. And what's that going to do? Like, it might help them for that particular moment, but I wanted to create something which was timeless, that they could always go back to it. And for me, it was music. Music is like therapy to me. Before I bowl, I listen to music. If I'm down, I listen to music. It kind of helps me. So I thought to myself, I want to create a fast bowling anthem. It's never been done before. So I hooked up with this is a crazy story as well, but I collaborated with an artist from Canada, and would you ever associate Canada or anyone from Toronto as being cricket fans?
Well, before the last probably 18 months, no, but I now know through my community how much they love it there. And that's a place that's certainly on my radar to get to soon.
We had this rapper called Bass Stacks. He expressed a hell of a lot of enthusiasm for the project. I listened to his music and I thought, this guy does not even know what cricket is. I was actually communicating with his manager until one day he actually sent me a message, just like 2 weeks into the project. And he said, do you know I love fast bowling? I said, sorry, what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, growing up, I was playing for the Toronto Cricket Academy. All I ever wanted to do was be a fast bowler, but I lost a love for it. And I was like, no way. And he sent me videos of him, and I was like, went back and we were speaking internally. We were like, this is just too much. Like, how?
Meant to be.
Yeah, like it was just meant to be. And I gave him my own personal experiences and struggles through cricket. I took a lot from what our community shared with me, and I gave him a lot of context. He came back and he created this unbelievable song, and the song was just so powerful. I said to myself, look, I need to create a video to this. Don't ask me how. Somehow, some way, shot the music video ourselves internally. I acted in it, so I'm acting out the experiences that I told. And for me, this is the campaign has been about 2 weeks, and in that 2 weeks, I've tried to give a lot more of my own personal stories and a lot of the lessons that I learned along those years to try and help these guys. And the song will go on YouTube this Sunday, the 25th of August. And I'm hoping that whenever these guys are down and they don't have somebody who they can talk to, they go and watch this video and listen to this song, and they get that little bit of relief from it.
Amazing. Well, we're sitting here Thursday the 22nd of August, so the song's released in a couple of days. This podcast won't go out for another few weeks, so it will be live when this is launched, so we'll have a link to it in the show notes and the YouTube video. So I know you put a short clip of it on Instagram the other day, so I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm sure all the Pace family are as well. So excellent, and like you say, music is therapy. No doubt this is going to change the lives even more for a number of. What else what's next for Pace Journal?
We're looking to evolve our content. We've got quite a lot of exciting things going on internally. Just trying to work it out. I mean, for the last 12, 13 months, I've been doing this every single day. It's taken a lot out of me as well. So after this campaign is done, I'm probably going to take 2-3 days to just unwind,
recharge the RNS,
stay off of social media completely, and then map out the next steps for hopefully some exciting stuff soon.
Brilliant. Well, we'll bring it to a close very soon, but the final few questions I ask all of our guests are, why do you play cricket? Or why did you play cricket?
I'm going to use a quote that someone once said to me: cricket made me something. So for me, I felt like it was my identity. Anyone who's played cricket will probably understand what I mean by that. You could, if you're a batsman, you could have an average of 1. When you put on the lid, you get in the middle, you feel like you're the man. And for me, that's why I play it. Because take all of it, it's never been fame, it's never been money, it's never been anything like that. It made me something. So that's my place where I'm my hero. So for me, that's why.
Amazing. Now, what is your definition of success?
I want to say being happy and content, but also at the same time making a difference and helping the world. Because I feel like a lot of people are very money hungry. Like just like you've experienced, I've noticed so many people come up and jump on the fast bowling bandwagon after we've come on board and shown how big the market actually is. But for me, Pace Journal, as I mentioned to you before, it never started off as trying to make money. I always look at money as a consequence, not the driver. So for me, ethical business, making a difference should always come before just trying to make a quick buck. So for me, success is that, making a difference.
Amazing. Well, you are making a difference. You seem happy.
I'm very happy. Yeah.
Excellent. So you're very successful in my book. So
Thank
well
you so
done.
much.
And finally, where can everyone follow you personally, and also obviously give all the handles for Pace Journal?
Yeah, just at Pace Journals everywhere. Personally, I try to post more on at Mr. Pace Journal, thanks to my niece who has forgotten my name now. And all my birthday cards or anything, it's always Dear Pace Journal. When she sees me, I Pace Journal. So yeah, I've lost my name.
Global phenomenon.
I'm trying.
Well, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to find out more about the man behind Pace Journal and hear his incredible and inspiring story. So, no doubt all of our listeners and viewers have got a huge amount of inspiration and also lots of great lessons out of that as well. So, Shahbaz, thank you very much,
Thank you so much for the time, man.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for watching this video. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your busy life to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you got some value, please subscribe below, hit subscribe to our channel. We try and publish some really interesting and valuable content for you guys, so subscribe if you haven't done so already. Check out our next 2 videos here below. Make sure you subscribe and also turn on post notifications, and join the CM community by purchasing some merchandise. Link is in the description below. Thanks, legends. Now go out and get it done.